Massive consequences. That's the united promise from G7 foreign ministers to Russia if it invades Ukraine. They met in Liverpool over the weekend and also called on Iran to make concessions in negotiations over its nuclear program.
And everyone looking this way.
A united front from British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and her counterparts from Germany, France, the US, Italy, Canada and Japan. Missing from the group of the world's largest economies since its 2014 annexation of Crimea is Russia, now the centre of a new conflict. Russia's denials it plans to attack its neighbour Ukraine, despite a massive troop build-up on its border, have not reassured the G7 ministers. Truss warned Moscow that any aggression would be a strategic mistake.
And what we've shown this weekend is that the world's largest economies are united. We've sent a powerful signal to our adversaries and our allies. We've been clear that any incursion by Russia into Ukraine would have massive consequences for which there would be a severe cost.
The ministers also urged Tehran to make concessions to rescue talks aimed at resurrecting the 2015 nuclear deal. The so-called Joint Plan of Action restricted Iran's nuclear program in return for the lifting of US sanctions.
This is the last chance for Iran to come to the negotiating table with a serious resolution to this issue, which has to be agreeing the terms of the JCPOA. We will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
Other issues addressed included a fairer means of vaccine distribution to low and middle income countries, but no new plans were laid. And the diplomatic boycott of Beijing's Winter Olympics. With concern about alleged Chinese human rights abuses growing, Truss invited foreign ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations to join their G7 counterparts. The summit is the last G7 meeting set to take place under the British presidency. From 2022, Germany takes over the role. New Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock vowed to make the fight against climate change one of the central topics of her country's presidency.
EU foreign ministers are meeting today in Brussels, and that's where we'll find DW's Brussels bureau chief, Alexandra von Namen. Alexandra, good morning. G7 foreign ministers spoke of massive consequences if Russia was to invade Ukraine. Tough words, but few details. Has there been any indication on what those consequences could be?
Well, you're right that the G7 foreign ministers didn't go into specifics in their final communique. However, they showed that they were united on Russia, and they also backed Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty in their final communique. When we talk about those massive consequences that they warned Russia of, there are different options. They could include wide-ranging political and economic sanctions against whole sectors of industry, possibly. There are also experts who are saying that they are in favor of cutting off Russia from the electronic payments system SWIFT. But as we just said, the G7 foreign ministers didn't go into specifics. However, they made clear that there would be consequences if Russia uses force against Ukraine.
Now, the EU foreign ministers are going to be meeting today. What position are they likely to take on this issue, Alexandra?
Well, I think that they will also talk about potential European sanctions against Russia in case of any further aggression against Ukraine. They are not going to make a decision of those. That will be potentially up to the EU leaders who are going to meet in Brussels later this week. But there will be definitely one decision today, even though it doesn't have anything to do directly with the Russian military buildup on the border with Ukraine, but the EU foreign ministers are set to impose sanctions on a paramilitary Russian group, that so-called Wagner Group, that has been accused of human rights abuses in Ukraine, but also in Libya and in Syria, and that is something certainly what we can expect today.
Alexandra von Namen, our DW bureau chief in Brussels. Thank you very much.